Gentlemen, just on the significance of having Uhuru Kenyatta, and of course we'll see other luminaries attending this particular celebration, what does that say about the support that the ANC still enjoys intercontinentally?
Well, it must be stated that the ANC is the firstborn of liberation movements on the continent, 1912. And so when you speak about Kenya and, Uhuru Kenyatta, you're speaking about a liberation movement that modeled itself and was somewhat inspired by the ANC itself. We do know also that even former President Jomo Kenyatta was a strong anti-apartheid speaker and campaigner to try and woo the world to try and deal with the South African situation back in the 60s. So it's very significant, but it also speaks to this ongoing attempt to unite Africa. You know, the Organization of African Unity is founded in 1963. People like Julius Nyerere, Haile Selassie, Abdel Nasser of Egypt at the forefront of that formation. It then reinvents itself in 2002 into what is now known as the African Union. And when it does that, it says its major mission is to unite and build the United States of Africa. So it's quite significant that we also heard President Kenyatta yesterday in Durban speaking about also increasing bilateral and trade relations. What is of concern, of course, speaking on the side of the economy, is that if you look at the South African economy, if you look at the import-export, if you look at trade partners, there is still somewhat an over-reliance on outside African sort of countries in terms of...
Do they still have that kind of dominance, if you like? We saw with the intervention of Mmusi Maimane in the Zambian political impasse there, where he was subsequently then kicked out, as it were. Does the ANC still exclusively enjoy that dominance of support on the continent?
Well, we must read this in context. In 2007, the African National Congress at this elective conference in Polokwane, took a resolution that it will establish formal relations with all former liberation movements across the continent and globally. Hence, the relations with even the Communist Party in Cuba, for example, or even in Russia. And then also that within the continent, where there is an absence of a liberation movement, they will then formalize relations as a political party with the ruling or governing party of that particular country. And that resolution was, and once again, I think, reenacted in 2012 in Mangaung. So we've seen this in context, that in major events of the African National Congress, they will invite various people. The 100th year celebration of the ANC, we had a big contingent then from Kenya as well. Kalunso Musyoka, who was in the government of national unity then in Kenya, of course, attended representing Kenya. So I think this is an attempt of ensuring that there can be solidarity among the governing parties of the African continent. And of course, President Uhuru Kenyatta is the leader of the political party, his political party in Kenya. So we should read it in that context. And in a way, the African National Congress, I think it offers a hope, or the last hope. We have to bear in mind of the liberation movements. There are very few that are left which are still in government today. Most of them have either dissipated. So the African National Congress is the old.
Really very ready to go ahead with the program of giving the services to our people. And we're looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so it's going to be a very fluid broadcast because, as we mentioned, we try to give you all the angles and the action that is currently taking place in anticipation of the maiden January 8th statement by Cyril Ramaphosa. I mean, I just want to go back again that talking about a strategy and the criticism that the ANC is not acting, its posture is not that of a ruling party. They seem to be cornered a lot, having to be defensive or, including what's happening in all the court cases. How significant is Mmusi's visit last year to Zambia, albeit that he was denied entry, on what the opposition's not only intention is, but the ability of being able to threaten the dominance of support of the ANC on the continent?
Oh, look, it was quite telling, you see. Imperialism never sleeps, you see. And that is also the attitude and the practice that the ANC and progressive ruling parties on the continent need to take. So it was really heartening to see that they saw that for what it really was, that there is no way a member of a white supremacist organization, which is not a ruling party in this country, can go almost purporting to be a representative of the South African people and their interests, and a party that is known in terms of its history, but in terms of its own politics in the continent. But we're also aware that what imperialism continues to do in this country, prop up, beef up opposition, is what it has been doing across the continent. You look at the MDC, which is a spectacular failure, and ZANU-PF continues, to be the genuine representative of the aspirations of the people of Zimbabwe, given the weaknesses and the mistakes that do happen from time to time. But what is really amazing about our people is that no amount of tricks are able to fool them to just willy-nilly embrace these stooges which are propped up by imperialism. If you look at even the emergence of the MDC under Tsvangirai, it's almost similar to what we are dealing with here, and one could go on and make examples of.
You speak to the organizational renewal. We heard even with the SG saying that, especially with Luthuli House, it seems that there had been a vacuum left there of skill sets that are critical that were then placed in government, leaving the organization vulnerable and without a direction. So if you take the Democratic Alliance, for example, and their existence in London and how well-resourced and capable they are, including issues of around the continent, breaking it up in certain regions and involving themselves in programs, where has the ANC then lost it or dropped the ball in ensuring that organizational strength remains in their programs?
Look, this relates both to the DA and the EFF. And we've been saying, where is the war room of the ANC? You look at the blunders that have been committed by the opposition in the last year or so. And then and there's almost complete silence in terms of the battle of ideas coming from the ANC. And you look at the national discourse, Cindy, and it is absolutely appalling that one can say for the last year or two, the combined opposition of the EFF and the DA have been at the forefront of crafting a national. It's a false discourse. It's one that seeks to move away from the real issues, but you cannot run away from the fact that the ANC seems to be on the defensive. So I couldn't agree more that the ANC needs to go back to its sort of founding nature of being a party of strategists and tacticians, of thinkers, but also being in touch with the people on the ground in terms of leading how our people are shaping their thinking.